Hello, welcome to this video. As you can see around me, there is some footage of me repotting my plants. That's from earlier this summer, and I wanted that to play whilst you listen to an interesting conversation that I had last week. I was visiting a friend in Berlin, and we had a discussion about a poem that she was reading that I also read. So, without further ado, I guess I'll just play the clip. Please, whilst you watch this, sit down, breathe, tell your kids to go in the other room, tell your mum to stop hoovering or put your headphones on, and just try and listen and think with us and experience these thoughts with us. And if anything comes up for you whilst you're listening and watching, please write something in the comments, because I'd love to know what thoughts sparked for you whilst you were listening to this conversation. I think we touch on quite interesting different topics and threads and so on. So I'd love to know if you agree with us, disagree with us, or what things came to your mind. That aside, please enjoy.
Do you want to read the poem out loud?
Yeah, can I do a quick intro?
Yeah, can I read the poem out loud though?
Oh, you want to do the reading?
Yeah,
sure.
It's literally my
Yes,
pastime.
whilst you find it, I will do the intro.
Okay, cool.
So, welcome to this late night recording, or this doesn't have a name.
Yeah, I think also just start again, because otherwise you're going to get all of me rustling the paper
That's
in
fine.
the background.
I might use it. Okay, welcome to this late night recording of This That Has No Name. Ooh, that could be a title.
I like that.
In this segment, what we're going to do is we're going to read a poem and then discuss the themes. And we'll see how the conversation leads us. I promise this is not the start of a podcast. I can see that I'm a man with a microphone right now, but this is not the beginning of a podcast, I promise. Take it away. Do you want to introduce yourself, or do you want to just jump in?
I can introduce myself, because what I want to do is find the section that we both really liked here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm Nibras, and I think that might also be the entire introduction, because really, what do you say about yourself? So this is a poem called Friendship by David Whyte. Do you want to intro this poem?
I don't know anything about the poem other than the fact that I read it this morning.
Okay, perfect, yeah. So this is a poem called Friendship by David Whyte, and David Whyte is one of my current favorite poets, and one thing that's really lovely is actually sharing the poetry with friends. So having people come through while they're visiting and reading together, and then seeing different people get hit by different poems and by different parts of the poems. So Benga and I were reading this morning on the train on the way here, and this is the section that he ended up rereading, which was very, very beautiful. The ultimate touchstone of friendship is not improvement, neither of the self nor of the other. The ultimate touchstone is witness, the privilege of having been seen by someone, and the equal privilege of being granted the sight of the essence of another, to have walked with them, and to have believed in them, and sometimes just to have accompanied them for however brief a span, on a journey impossible to accomplish alone.
I think the bit that jumped out to me, even when you just reread it just then, was let me even find it. Thank you for actually passing it to me, because I need to remember. Was the equal privilege of the equal privilege of being granted the sight of the essence of another, to have walked with them and to have believed with them, and sometimes to just accompany them for however brief a span. So basically, the second half.
Yeah. Yeah. So when he reads this, he has these readings of these poems, and the way he reads them, he'll always repeat certain lines.
Oh.
And I think he repeats the lines that stand out to him the most, and he'll repeat them like twice or 3 times, and just kind of leave pauses between them. So it kind of makes sense to me that you're rereading it as well. I
wonder if the bits that I reread were the bits that he reread.
That would be nice to hear. I don't know.
I think the first time I reread like 2 or 3 different parts.
Yes.
Of this section, which is like 10 lines long.
So do you want to talk about what it is about that section that, like, what hit the first time and what made you go back to reread? Because I feel like when we, especially with poetry, sometimes I'll pause and I'll be like, no. I think, as you said, reload it, right? Like,
yeah.
Go back, see what that is. And it's almost a sense of like, I want these words to soak into me.
Mm-hmm.
I want there's something here that either feels really true or I want to become very true for me. So what was it for you with this?
So, the first bit, the privilege of having been seen by someone. I think that's a very classic therapyism to say, like, I want to feel seen or be seen, and thank you for seeing me. But it has truth, as basically everything in therapy does, which is you can go through life and be quite anonymous and exist among people in a group and interface with people without them really seeing who you are. Mm-hmm. That could be because you're putting on a front, or because you're not showing your true self, or even if you are, they're not really recognizing you for that, so they are not seeing you, so you're not being seen. So I think that's like one of like a fundamental human interaction, is that being seen. So that was the first part, especially in friendship as well, because there's like, I'm not trying to go into the whole discussion about people using the word friend in different ways, because there's a whole discussion, I'm not going to get into it, but that's one of the areas. But I think in friendship there's different levels of being seen, so that jumped out to me. The other part that I think really stood out was to have walked with them and to have believed in them, which I kind of see it from two perspectives, because the to have walked with them I really like, because it kind of insinuates that you need to, friendship is an active choice, it's an ongoing concept, it's a, what's the word, some kind of, I need an adjective that describes the passage of time. any suggestions?
The second you say that, everything goes out of my head.
I've got no suggestions right now, but it's, you can't, friendship exists over a period of time.
Yeah.
And you can't be friends just in a moment. Friendship is something that occurs. It's like, it's dynamic. And so that way of phrasing it, of to have walked with them, reminds me that you can't, being someone's friend in a moment is one thing, but being someone's friend really requires like a certain level of dedication. Something as simple as like, okay, someone is inviting you out for dinner, and then you go, and then the next time they're in town, you invite them to dinner, and then you go. The friendship requires that like constant input over a period of time, and that is what creates the relationship that lasts that period.
So earlier in the poem, like one of the first parts that's super beautiful is this emphasis on forgiveness, and I think that's a really beautiful framing on friendship. This like shifting of focus to a friendship is how good it feels, and how good it feels in that moment when you're together, versus a friendship is actually how well do you repair, right? Which is a thing that does happen over time, because in pretty much any friendship, I think, where you're being seen, to go back to that being witnessed, if you're not filtering yourself, if you're being the totality of what you are, and you're being vulnerable and you're being open, and they are in return as well, at some point you hit frictions. That just seems to be like the way things naturally move. And then when that happens, at least I've seen in myself and seen around me, there can be this feeling of like, oh, well, I guess we're not friends now. Like, it doesn't feel good anymore, so guess we can't be friends. And then he kind of has this idea of, no, like the friendship is, it is this, I have an image of like knitting a sweater, right? And the pattern that you have in the sweater, the shape that you make, the design on it, is the repair that happens every time that you have some issue or some problem, and you have forgiveness, right? And so you're weaving this thing over time. But it's not just the highlights and not just the goodness, but also when I see you fully angry, or when I see you fully sad, or when some way, somehow one of us loses it or does something that's a break of trust, do we then have the love and the skills and like the communication to come back and to work together and to weave together and to get back to a place that feels good again, that feels like Yeah, that feels like a good friendship again.
That reminds me so much of just thinking about how the way that walked with them came into my mind, the way I was seeing it. It kind of underneath the surface is saying that you've been with them through the good times and the bad. And I think you just reaffirmed that of communication breakdown, not being friends, and like becoming friends again, and break up, all that stuff. That can only take place over a period of time.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to avoid it, but I feel like I can't avoid the discussion on what really is like what does the word friend mean, and the way that different people define it. Because by that definition, you can't really have a friend that you've never fought with or never had a bad time with. If your friendship has only been positive, you could argue that that's not friendship. Kind of, if you're taking that line to be like a dictionary definition of friendship, because to me, the to have walked with kind of implies through various scenarios. But the person that you like say hi to at the chip shop every time you walk past isn't your friend. I mean, they are saying like, boss man, I'll give you a good deal, or like, my best friend, you're back again. But that, you haven't walked with them. You've walked past them, but you've not walked with them.
I like that. And the whole, like, this poem and the other ones in that book as well, which is called Consolations, is all about redefining commonly used words, right? So that's exactly what he's doing in the poem. He's saying, okay, we say friendship, we call people friends, but what does friendship actually mean, and what kind of definition do I want to use for friendship, knowing that language is essentially the operating system of our lives, right? So like, what do I want that code to say?
Wait, run that back. Say that again. Say it again.
Language is essentially the operating system of our lives, right? So you can have insane software updates, software being the way that you interact with your life, the way that you feel in it, by going back and seeing some of the most important words that you use in your life, which could just be frequency, how often you use them, and redefining them for yourself essentially changes the experience of your day-to-day and your life as a whole. And so that's a lot of what he's doing with that book for himself and then for other people, because other people can adopt his definitions of these words. I dropped the language bomb. That's how you get a banger.
I'm going to just move on. I'm actually going to move on. Because if I start pulling at that thread, we will be here forever.
Why not?
Because there are so many thoughts like that come from that, but I think I need more time to break down all of the thoughts and even break down what you said. So we're not actually going to go down that path.
Let's do it. We can do another recording for it. That can be its own thing.
We can have a separate, because there's much to discuss there. The next segment that jumped out to me when I read it was the last bit. Sometimes just to have accompanied them for however brief a span on a journey impossible to accomplish alone. I think a lot of people would agree that maybe not can't do life alone, but doing life alone is more difficult than doing it with others. That's not to say it's objectively going to be easier to do life with people, because of course people are complicated and they can also be obstacles in your life, that's for sure. But for the most part, being completely alone presents challenges that are somewhat difficult to solve alone, whereas being in community provides so many opportunities for solutions, such that even the problems that arise from community can also be solved through community. And something that let me just go with that thought and then I'll come back to the quote. Something that just jumped into my mind is the fact that we were discussing this just earlier today, when I was on the phone to my friend, I haven't got permission to say his name right now. So if I speak to him and I ask, I'll put his name here. And we were talking about life and life paths, and how some people have very rigid, prescriptive life paths, and some people have very open, like, paths that can be influenced by tiny things. And this links to different conversation I'm having with a different person, and the way that he put it was something that humans do is that we make mostly emotion-based decisions, but then we retroactively apply logic to make it seem like it makes sense. And when he said that, I was like, oh, that's a lot, because I am on the receiving end of the bad side of that, which is that I can find myself stuck because I'm trying to find the logic in the moment, and I'm like, well, I made all those decisions based on logic, so obviously I need logic to make this one, but really I actually made them based on emotion, but I put the logic in after. But so that I'm not making a decision now, but the logic isn't going to come because it was never meant to be a logic-based decision in the first place. So the reason I brought that up was that being in community and being around people, and depending on how you define friendship, people can say such a small thing that completely changes the entire trajectory of your life. It can just even be just the trajectory of your day. Someone can be like, are you hungry? And you're like, actually, yeah, let's go for lunch. And the conversation you have at lunch completely changes the way you look at something. You can walk down the street that day because you decided to go for lunch, walk into the love of your life. So many tiny things can have such a ripple effect, and people are the best way to get those ripples into your life, I think.
Yeah, I agree. So I think one thing that I've seen you do over this trip, which I think is really beautiful, is lean into or create opportunities for people to enter into what you're doing and to enter into how you think and to enter into what you produce, right? So whether you're working on something or working on a video or writing about something, I think I've seen you more than most of my friends open source that to your community, right? So you're chosen people, and it's okay, I have something that I'm working on here. It's to do with Latin, it's to do with classics. I know who knows something about this. So I'm going to call that person and I'm going to say, here are the things that I'm thinking about. Here's the thing that I'm trying to create. How about we connect and you also pour some of your mind power into this? And I think to me, that's a very, very good example of what you just said. And honestly, watching you do it throughout the week, I've been like, this is beautiful. And this is a unique skill that I don't think everybody has, and I don't think everybody feels comfortable enough or actually just sees like the wealth that's around them, right? And I know you've been really excited saying like, wow, I have so many great people around me. I have so many people that I can tap into. And one, that you can see that is beautiful, and two, that you feel comfortable enough to tap into it is incredibly beautiful. Because nothing has to happen in isolation. And actually, like, very few interesting things happen in isolation. The most interesting things happen in a community, and that community can just, like, community makes it sound formal, right? A community is just, it's friends, it's people that you like, it's people that you find interesting, it's people that you open yourself up to, and in that opening, something new emerges that usually is much, much, much more interesting than whatever you intentionally set out to do. It's kind of like you said, your day can move in an entirely different direction if you're just open to interference rather than kind of imposing your will on the world of this is what I want and this is what I will create.
And trying to impose your will on the world can also just cause frustration because people are inherently unpredictable, and they have the free will and agency to do what they want. So trying to get other people to do what you want is often an uphill battle. So sometimes it's worth trying to see how you can be swept along by what others are doing. That's not to say that you should like be a pushover, but allow time and space for you to be influenced by others and see how that impacts you.
Absolutely. And also like loosen the boundaries of what you call yourself, right? And also realize like whatever you are is just an emergent property of the people that you're interacting with. And
you can't see, but the way that my eyes just widened.
And so like if there are parts of yourself that you want to spend more time in, if there are ways that you like feeling, if there are ways that you like expressing yourself, the easiest way to do that is to be with the people that make it so incredibly smooth and easy for that part to be expressed, right? Like, if I want to laugh a lot and I really want to spend a lot of time in the part of me that's super silly and very playful, I'm going to go hang out with the people in the residency who are exploring play, and that's their project. Or I'm going to go with my friend who I know is like incredibly hilarious, and everything we interact with all day long is going to be a joke and a joke and a joke and a joke. And then I get to be in that really like childlike, playful part of me. And if I want to get super excited about language and like process the world through a linguistic lens all day long, I know I'm going to call up Benga and say, hey, let's go. And then I can tap into how that's fun, right? And then that part of me that likes breaking things down in that way will be the part that I spend the most time in, right? So it's like this, something really beautiful to having a fluidity of self and like knowing the self that you create. Like, there are obviously very famous quotes like, you're the result of the 5 people you spend time around, blah-de-blah-de-blah. But also like the self that you are at any one moment is just whoever you're spending time around, whether that's one person or multiple people. That's going to be the thing that arises and emerges.
I've got nothing else to add. I really have nothing else to add.
Beautiful. We wrap it up here then. We call it a natural ending.
Until the next one. This is the outro. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and let me know if you like this style of video in the comments below. If you enjoyed this style of video, then I will put a video over here that's similar. And if you didn't like this video, maybe you're here strictly for only factual plant content. If so, I'll put a video here for you. Otherwise, you can subscribe right here, and I will see you soon. Cheers! I'm currently in Berlin.